Most contractors don't realize they're losing money even before they get the job. The disconnect between design and build isn't just a process issue, it's a profit killer. I'm going to be showing you how one document, the PCSA, can transform your sales, your trust, and your bottom line. So why do you need a PCSA? What does that even stand for? It's a pre-construction service agreement. It can go by other names as well, but essentially you are locking the client in to some sort of an agreement before you get into the construction phase. And the reason for this is it helps bridge that gap between someone thinking about a project and them actually paying you money and you working for them. There's a whole bunch of benefits to this, and it's a very key component of having a really good, profitable experience as a builder, but also providing that great experience to the client because you're helping them through this process. If you've ever tried to run into a construction project after it's been designed and planned and everything else, and then you provide a budget to a client and it's a huge shock, you can understand why this process is so important. So this is going to help get rid of some of the shoppers around as well, because a lot of clients, if they're kind of shopping around, they found you online and they're going to try a couple of different contractors. By having a good PCSA process and being able to make that first sale and get them into that construction planning phase is a lot easier, and it's going to help kind of get rid of shoppers, or very early on let you know if this is someone that's only economy driven and just looking for the lowest price. This also solves the first problem of your client, because as a contractor, you're solving like the building of the project, and that's a huge problem to solve. But a lot of clients don't need that problem solved yet. When they come to you, when they first contact you, when the lead comes in, often the first problem they have is they don't really know what they want. They don't know how much it's going to cost. They don't know what kind of design features. They don't have any clue about the building experience. So they need all this pre-construction work and problem solved first before they get into the construction. And if you don't have a good PCSA process, then you're kind of leaving that ball in someone else's court. And you can see why your profitability can sink, because now you get contacted later for the building problem, but now they're just shopping with a whole bunch of other contractors. So it's a much easier sale as well, because it's a low commitment for the client compared to a full contract of a build. A new home for them may be $1 million, but to get them into a PCSA agreement, maybe it's $5,000 retainer or $15,000 package or whatever. It's a lot easier for them to commit to 5 to 10, 15 grand than it is for them to put $1 million on the line and choose you as the builder. And especially when you don't have any, working relationship or trust build up, which is why the process matters. So if you want a guide for this, check out the links in the description below. I've created a full guide. I'm going to be going over a lot of this information in the video here, but the guide really pinpoints, and it's kind of like a working document where you can create this for yourself. I'm going to be going over the process, how to sell PCSAs to clients in the right way that helps guide them to the next stage. We're also going to be looking at different things like what's actually included in a package to make it more desirable to be able to sell this. And also the design component. If you're a builder that's not familiar with design, or you don't have a designer on board, or not haven't gone through that, I'm going to be walking through what to do with that. So huge thing to build trust. You need a PCSA agreement if you are a general contractor, builder, anybody that does work for clients. Essentially, doesn't matter if you're residential or commercial, this should be something that's available to you that you can use to help guide clients through the process. All right, moving on to number 2. I don't do design. We are a general contracting company. We don't have a designer in-house. I might know a few interior designers, but we don't really help, or we don't want to deal ourselves with design. You need to start changing your mindset to that you are a design build company. Even if you're not going to advertise as one, you should always have that component as a key kind of step in your sales process. You don't have to do the design. You don't have to be super involved with the design, but you should know at least 3 to 5 really good designers, interior designers or architects, depending on the size or scale of projects you're doing. But you should know people that can fill that design gap. And they should be kind of included in your business as far as having some sort of a working partnership with them. You can let them know, I will send you clients, and we're going to do a retainer, and they'll pay me, and I pay you. Or you just have an agreement that you send them to them, but that you're heavily involved with that client, and you guys are having like regular meetings together, so that you have that working relationship and that you're getting paid for your time to be the consultant, the trusted advisor, to help the clients do like value add design and make those design decisions based off a budget and a schedule thought process that you as the contractor. And it also helps you really set yourself in a position where designers are going to want to talk to you. So this is a great way to network with designers because you can let them know, hey, I have clients that come to me or I get leads and they need design help. I'm, putting together a pre-construction type package. What are your rates, or how can we include this? How can I include you in that conversation so we can work together to make sure we're serving the client really well, but also getting paid at the rates that we should be as professionals in the space. So I don't do design. Get that out of your lingo. You do design, but with, a partner. If you're a big enough contractor, you may be looking at bringing this in-house and having an in-house designer. It can be a great revenue generator, and you can also get rid of a lot of that conflict. If you work with designers, you know the issues of like having blueprints that are out of whack, or design decisions that were made without you, and now you kind of have to clean up the mess, or you're at a standstill with the designer. We want the raised ceiling, clients want the raised ceiling, designer doesn't think it looks good, whatever, right? So it really helps the whole process. All right, moving on to number 3. You with me here? Like I said, we've got a full design to help you. Specifically, it gives you a ton of information, helps you work through exactly all these steps so you can have like a really robust pre-construction package, which is number 3 here, pre-construction package. So you can just sell this as like, go talk with my designer, or something like that. And that's probably the easiest way to start incorporating design into your process. And then just have a really good agreement with your designer that if you send them someone, they're obviously going to recommend you as the builder, or they provide you some sort of compensation, if leads work out or whatever. But what I suggest is getting an actual package in place. You want to position this as an offer to the client. And I'm going to be going through the process of like which steps of how to like from first lead to like getting them on a pre-construction agreement to like what that entails all the way up to the build. So hang with me here. But first of all, the package is what you need to offer the client. And the package is going to include design services. This is going to be, value add design services. You're going to provide a budget. So estimate, whatever you want to call it. But I would, you want to portray it as a budget because it's a working budget. It's going to change. It's going to, things can move around. And then also a schedule. So those are kind of like the big 3 things, as well as permitting, planning, anything like that. You can include like site inspections or selective demo if it's like a remodel or a tear down or something like that. You're going to need to get testing. You're going to have to do some preliminary stuff to get, clear the lot and all that stuff. So that could be not the actual clearing the lot necessarily or the kind of construction stuff, but testing, making sure that, environmental, geo, whatever, all that pre-construction stuff can be included in that package. Now, as far as the pricing goes, there's a number of different options. The easiest option is just to do some sort of like cost plus. You get a retainer, typically $5,000, I think would be typical. If you're doing like new home builds, if it's like a remodel, maybe it's $3,000 or $2,500, depending on like how much planning and designs are needed. But if you're going to need architectural or planning, going to have to pay a bunch of other people, then at least $5,000 to $10,000, retainer, and then you just kind of charge your time against that. Of course, the client, you want to make the value upside really high, so they're going to get design, they're going to get architectural, they're going to get your professional services, they're going to do value add design and all this kind of like permitting, and you're going to take care of everything for them. So you want to build up the value of it and then minimize the risk. So no long-term contract. This is just the pre-construction agreement. We work together for as long as it makes sense. If it comes out through feasibility that something comes up and it doesn't work, or there's nothing kind of holding them to that contract or holding them to do work with you. Of course, if you work through this pre-construction phase and you've got everybody on board and you've really shown them that you're professional, there's no reason why they wouldn't move into the construction, phase of the project. The nice thing about this PCSA too is there's iterative budgeting. So at first, you're going to give them like a ballpark budget, kind of like a scale, and then you're going to give them a rough budget and then a detailed budget. So they, there's not a big surprise kind of at the end where they're like going through all this design and it's like, yeah, we want that, we want that, we want that. And then all of a sudden the bill comes and it's like, wow, this is like $500,000 over budget. I don't know if we can do this. Now they got to scale back. And of course, no one wants to scale back and, realize that they're not going to get their nice swimming pool or whatever, right? So it's a great thing like that. So that's how you build your package. The pricing, like I said, that's the best one that I've found is some sort of retainer, and it's kind of an easy buy for them. It's like, yeah, we're just, $5,000. If we don't use it all, we'll return your money or just roll it into the construction portion of the project. And if anything over, we just bill, and we bill, weekly or biweekly. So you always know what's being paid and where costs are at. We're going to get, you get an estimate from the designer or architect or whatever, just so they have like some basic kind of numbers of expectation. You always want to make sure your expectations are really good. You follow me here? There's a lot that goes into this. Like I said, grab the guide, go check out the links, grab the guide. It's going to help you work through all this and really organize all this information that I'm giving you here. The other kind of thing that you can do, if you are a very niche type general contractor, then like if you just do basement, remodels, or just do remodels of like, large homes and stuff like that, then you might have a package. So it could be like, you could have two different packages. You kind of have your all in, everything included. We'll do the plans, we'll do the design, all this pre-construction stuff that I mentioned. And, that package is $7,500. Or if you don't want the full design and all that stuff, then we've got another package for $2,500 where we'll do the budget, the schedule, and you'll get like maybe a 2-hour meeting or 2 meetings with our designer to, help you with your selections if you kind of want to do your own selections or whatever. So you could have 2 different options that they could pick from, and you have like just a flat price. So that is the pre-construction package. Now we're going to be going into the actual marketing and sales. So you've got your offer, you've got the package. Now you need to be able to sell it, because if no one's buying, you're not going to move the ball down the field to the construction portion of the project. So what you need to get into place is have some sort of brochure. It should have your marketing, your logo, your colors, get it professionally designed. And it doesn't have to be super complicated or a lot of stuff, but essentially it's going to really clearly tell the client, what is the PCSA? So what is this thing? What are the steps? Why is it important? Frequently asked questions as far as like objection handling of, why do I need to pay for this? Why don't I just go get a free quote? Why don't I just find my own designer or do my own design? So, it's going to kind of outline all that stuff, the specific process, what they're all going to get. Ideally, a few like testimonials from past clients who've gone through this process, things like that. And as far as like the sales goes, so the brochure is a really important piece. I think a quick video too, put on something nice and just make a quick video, 3 minutes or something. And pretty much you're just going to go through the information that's in the brochure, but essentially just telling them, we work with clients. We always get into a PCSA because we want to be involved with the pre-construction process. We found it's the best experience for our clients, yada, 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 the benefits of it and things like that. So a quick little video is a nice touch as well that you can send them afterwards or whatever. As far as the actual sales, you need to be really confident and kind of sell yourself that like, this is by far the best way to work with a client. And if you haven't done this process, you're going to realize that like, it's just crazy not to work in this way, because it is so many benefits to both you and the client, and it's just a much better experience. The end product is much better. Everything just works better. Your referrals are better as well, because you're going to be talking with designers. You're going to work with other designers more. So you've got these like partnerships with other professionals in the industry. It's just a great way to do business for everybody. And then the final kind of piece I'm going to say as far as the sales go is have an objection list. So I mentioned the FAQs. The objection list is going to be like what objections come up. So, I just want to get a free quote, or I'm just going to go to Home Depot and pick my own stuff. I don't need design help, or, whatever it may be. Whenever you get an objection, when you're presenting this to a client, make sure you write that down. You should have a running list. I have a document, objections that come up, common ones, and then you want to formulate responses. Not that you need to memorize every response, but at least you have some sort of a kind of mental acuity to how to respond when a client asks you these questions, instead of just kind of stumbling around and not knowing what to say. So now you got your offer, you know how to market and sell it. Now we're moving on to the 5th spot here. And I'm going to be going through a quick kind of overview of the guide that I mentioned to help you work through and build this all out for yourself and really fine tune your process. So I'm going to go over overview in the next step. Before we get to that, number 5, though, is the process. So what actually happens in the pre-construction process? We've got the client, they're excited, we're excited, but now what, right? So the way that I like to structure this, and you may move these pieces around or do your own thing depending on your company, but at first you're going to have a free consultation. So typically you're going to meet the client somewhere. You're going to go through if they got plans, you're going to go through their plans. You're going to go meet at the lot or their house if it's a remodel or whatever. Even if it's a new build, you might want to meet at their house and kind of show them your little sales presentation. So you're going to do a free consultation, give them, your advice, look through their whatever plans or get, their questions answered and stuff like that. Then you're going to provide a ballpark budget. Ballpark budget is just like kind of back of the napkin, quick math. They want a 2,500 square foot home. So times that by X, hundreds of dollars per square foot. This is kind of what you're looking at as far as a budget range, right? Does that sound about right to you? They're like, yeah, that's sort of what we expected. Great. Let's, kind of move into the next stage. If they're like, balking at the ballpark budget, then, maybe you have to have another discussion with them, or maybe it's not a right fit. You always want to salvage the sale, but if they're like way out to lunch, it's an easy way to get some face time with them, but also not to waste your time providing some sort of like estimating and then realizing like after you spend a couple hours on estimating that this isn't even close to what they're expecting. So that ballpark and free consult kind of like, it's like you're presenting yourself and promoting yourself, but you're also sort of interviewing. You don't want to make an interview, but you're kind of like, seeing, is this client someone I want to work with? Are we on the same page as far as, budgets and schedules and all that kind of stuff? So after that, you will essentially move them into a PCSA. So after that, it's like, okay, sounds like your budget is reasonable or workable anyways. Let's get this into some like a design to kind of start formalizing a plan. If they already have plans, you can just say like, this is great. We will do a really great budgeting for you for this project. We don't do like free budgets. You could do kind of a little bit more of a detailed estimate for them. Again, it depends on your situation. If you've got like leads coming in left, right, and center, you can just move into PCSA. If every lead really matters or you're looking to scale or grow your business, then you may want to provide a free kind of rough budget as well. And this is going to be more detailed. You'll work from a template, so it should be pretty fast. Like you should be able to get it done in less than an hour, 40 minutes to an hour. And you're just sort of taking base numbers, doing a couple takeoffs from the plans, but providing them with a pretty detailed quote. And then from there, you can then move them into a PCSA, which lets them know like, this is a rough budget. Now we're going to kind of finalize the design, the selections. We're going to apply for permitting. So you're ahead of the game on that, as well as we will start to tender, the bids out to our subcontractors and suppliers and get really accurate fine-tuned pricing, right? And then you're going to get paid for all that work and you'll charge for your time and what have you. So that kind of gets you to that stage. Once they sign the PCSA, then you can move forward and now you're going to do your drill down, budgeting, designing, inspections, scheduling, all that kind of stuff and running into permits and everything. So it's a really nice kind of pre-construction, phase and nice way to kind of keep the ball moving with the client. And then once you've gone through that pre-construction stage, they've worked with you for so long. They've already met your whole team. You've worked through this budget with them multiple times. They've already gotten in the habit of paying you for invoicing so they can see, hopefully you've got your systems in place and your payments and everything kind of runs smoothly. Communication's great. There's no reason why they wouldn't now move forward with the construction portion of their project. All right. So that's like all the details there. Now I'm going to go into the guide that I mentioned. I'm going to give you a quick overview of the guide. Go get it in the links here and I'll see you in the guide. So here's the pre-construction service agreement guide for builders. And I'm just going to do a quick overview so you can see what it is. Then this is all about your process. So you're going to build out what is your pre-construction process. It's going to be a little different for every builder. How do you want to have the pieces move together? And the reason to get this into place is so that you can communicate properly to your client when they ask you like, why is this important? What does it matter? And then you can create your marketing materials as well. Like, okay, this is like the first step and the second step. And it's just like very clear, very lineal for them to see like, oh, that makes sense, right? So we talked about, you've got your free consult, you got your ballpark estimate. Ideally, they sign the PCSA at that point. You could have, as a third step, more of like a rough budgeting where you get a little more, provide them with some sort of proposal. It's not so much a proposal, it's just like, this is a rough budget, but in order to get you an actual detailed budget, we need to go through design. So in order to do that, we do a PCSA and you'll go over, the reasons for it and the benefits and all that kind of stuff. And then ultimately you go through the pre-construction process. And then after that, they would then sign the construction contract and you move into the actual scheduling them in your pipeline and stuff like that. That's another thing with this whole PCSA is like, you could tell them, we can't hold your spot in our production pipeline unless we have a PCSA in place with a client, because we may be scheduling, 6 months or 12 months out. If our production team gets full full and our pipeline's full, we may not be able to start your project when you'd actually like to get started. So in order to hold your spot in the pipeline, we request that you sign a PCSA so that we can then get you in our schedule. So that's another reason for them to move ahead with you and make sure that you're in schedule. And it kind of positions you as an in-demand builder. You're not just willy-nilly, taking on every client as fast as you can and like cramming in as much work as you can. You're actually structured and their project is going to get due process with the other clients that you have. This is about creating the marketing piece, the video piece, more about the video there. This is about building, like, what does the actual PCSA agreement look like? So once you've done the earlier steps, now you kind of know what's going into it, the process. So now you can create the actual agreement that you're going to provide to them for them to sign and how to get that in place. Obviously, you're going to want to involve a lawyer to make sure everything is, proper and it's not just, some random thing that you got ChatGPT to make, even though it's probably better than a lot of lawyers nowadays, but make sure you get an actual professional person to vet the PCSA or build it for you based off of what you provided. And then this goes over all the sales process, how to actually sell this, handle objections and, doing your follow-ups and things like that, as well as some next steps here. So go grab this document. It's in the description. There's a link there. Click the link, go and get this and start utilizing for your company. You'll make a world of difference for you. Move quickly and smoothly into construction with your business.